Most men and many women are unknowingly poisoning their own collagen every single day. And then they wonder why their hands look 20 years older than their faces. You look down at your hands while gripping the steering wheel or holding a cup of coffee, and it's a shock, isn't it? You don't see the strong, capable hands you remember. Instead, you see a roadmap of bulging blue veins, tendons that shift and slide under skin that looks as thin as parchment paper, and a hollowness that makes you feel fragile. It is a jarring disconnect. You feel vibrant and youthful on the inside, but your hands are betraying you, broadcasting a message of age and decline to the world. And here is the painful truth that most doctors won't take the time to explain to you. This isn't just normal aging, it is a specific biological failure of your skin's structural support system. You have likely been told that there is nothing you can do about it, or that you missed the boat because you didn't start using hand cream in your 30s. I am here to tell you that is absolute nonsense. The human body is a regenerative machine, and your skin, even the thin skin on the backs of your hands, retains the capacity to repair itself until your very last breath, but it needs the right signals. We are going to have a very different kind of conversation today. We aren't going to talk about generic moisturizers that smell like lavender and do absolutely nothing for the structure of your skin. We are going to talk about the hard science of collagen synthesis, lipid barrier restoration, and the specific environmental toxins you need to block right now. I'm going to walk you through 5 scientifically proven ways to physically thicken the skin on your hands, restoring that plump, youthful cushion that hides the veins and softens the tendons. This is a protocol, not a quick fix. It requires commitment. But if you follow these steps, you can turn back the clock. If that sounds like the kind of no nonsense, health focused guidance you've been looking for, you are in the right place. We are building a community here that refuses to accept frailty as a given. So consider subscribing if you want to stay ahead of the curve. And I'm curious, I'd love to know who I'm talking to today. Where in the world are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. It is always incredible to see how far reaching our community has become. Now, before we get to the solutions, we need to briefly understand the problem so you know why these fixes work. Why do your hands look so veiny? It is rarely because the veins themselves have grown. It is an optical illusion caused by the loss of volume. Your hands have a layer of subcutaneous fat, a natural protective padding that sits between your skin and your veins. Think of this fat like the water in a river. When the river is high, you can't see the rocks at the bottom. But as we age, that fat layer disintegrates, the river level drops, and suddenly the rocks, which are your veins and tendons, appear massive and prominent. Our goal today is to refill the river. We are going to rebuild that cushion and thicken the skin over it. This brings us directly to the first and most critical change you must make. And I cannot stress this enough. You have to stop the daily destruction of your hands' cellular DNA. You might be diligent about putting sunscreen on your face, but I would bet good money that you completely ignore your hands. And this is the fatal flaw in most people's anti-aging routine. Your hands are exposed to ultraviolet radiation almost constantly. Think about it. When you are driving, your hands are on the top of the wheel, angling directly toward the windshield. When you are walking the dog, pushing a stroller, or even just sitting near a window in your house, your hands are soaking up UVA rays. Now, why is this so catastrophic? You need to understand the difference between UVA and UVB rays. UVB rays cause sunburns. They let you know you're being damaged because your skin turns red and hurts. But UVA rays are the silent killers. They have a longer wavelength, which means they penetrate deep into the dermis, the thick living layer of your skin where your collagen and elastin live. They don't burn you, so you don't feel the damage happening. Instead, they act like microscopic scissors, snipping the collagen fibers that give your skin its thickness and bounce. Over years of this silent assault, your skin becomes like an old, threadbare piece of fabric. It loses its structural integrity and collapses onto the veins underneath. The scientific evidence for this is undeniable and frankly shocking. There was a landmark case study published in the New England Journal of Medicine that every dermatologist knows. They examined a 6'9" year old truck driver who had spent 28 years on the road. The photos from this study are haunting. The left side of his face, the side next to the truck window, looked roughly 20 years older than the right side. The skin was deeply thickened, wrinkled, and sagging, a condition known as unilateral dermatoheliosis. What this study proves is that glass does not protect you. Windshields block UVB rays so you don't get sunburn, but they let the aging UVA rays pass right through. Your hands are in that exact same position on the steering wheel every single day for decades. If you are trying to plump your hands with creams, but you aren't blocking this radiation, you are wasting your time. It's like trying to fill a bucket with water while someone is drilling holes in the bottom. So here is your actionable strategy. You need to treat your hands with the same level of protection as your face. This means applying a broad spectrum sunscreen of at least SPF 30 to the backs of your hands every single day. But let's be real about the logistics here. The problem with hands is that we wash them. You apply sunscreen in the morning, then you go to the bathroom, wash your hands, and boom, your protection is gone. To make this work, you need a system. I want you to buy a dedicated tube of sunscreen and keep it in your car's center console. Make it a rule. Seatbelt first, sunscreen second. Apply it to the backs of your hands before you even turn the key. If you are a gardener, a golfer, or someone who spends hours outdoors, relying on cream might not be enough. In that case, I want you to look into UPF clothing, specifically UPF gloves. They make fingerless versions that cover the back of the hand, but leave your fingers free to grip. It might feel a little strange at first, but physically blocking those rays is the single most effective way to preserve the fatty tissue you have left. Once you have stopped the damage, we need to talk about repair. We need to physically thicken the skin that has already thinned, and for that, we turn to the gold standard of dermatology. The second way to make your hands look young again is to use retinoids. You've likely heard of retinol for facial wrinkles, but it is tragically underused for the hands. Retinoids are vitamin A derivatives, and they are fascinating because they don't just sit on the surface of the skin. They actually communicate with your cells. They penetrate the cell walls and bind to nuclear receptors, literally instructing the cell to behave like a younger version of itself. Here is the mechanism. Your skin has cells called fibroblasts. These are the construction workers of your skin. Their job is to churn out collagen, the protein that gives skin its structure. As we age, these fibroblasts get tired and sluggish. They go into a dormant state and stop producing. Retinoids act like a job site foreman. They march into the dermis and blow a whistle, waking up those fibroblasts and ordering them to get back to work. The science on this is incredibly robust. A pivotal study conducted by researchers at the University of Michigan Medical School and published in the Archives of Dermatology demonstrated just how powerful this can be, even in advanced age. They applied topical retinol to the skin of elderly volunteers, people with an average age of 87 for 24 weeks. I want you to really let that sink in. 87 years old, the results showed that the retinol-treated skin had a significant increase in the production of type I procollagen and a reduction in the enzymes that break down collagen. This proves that your skin cells never lose the ability to listen. They just stop receiving the signal. You can restart that engine at 60, 70, or even 80. However, there is a catch. The skin on the back of your hands is very different from the skin on your face. It has far fewer oil glands, which means it dries out and gets irritated much faster. If you take a high-strength prescription retinoid like tretinoin and slap it on your hands every night, you are going to end up with red, flaky, angry skin. That is not the look we are going for. You need to introduce this ingredient gently. Imagine your skin is like a person who hasn't exercised in 20 years. You don't start them with a marathon. You start with a walk around the block. Start by using an over-the-counter body lotion that contains retinol. These are formulated with moisturizing bases that buffer the irritation. If you are already using a retinol serum on your face, a great trick is to simply rub the excess from your palms onto the backs of your hands. Do this every other night at first. If you find your hands are getting dry, mix the retinol with a plain, thick moisturizing cream. This dilutes the strength but still delivers the signal. Over the course of 6 months to a year, this will physically thicken the epidermis, creating a better blurring effect over those blue veins. It is a long game. but it is the only topical method that actually changes the biology of the skin. While we are on the topic of biology, we have to look at what you are putting into your body because your skin is ultimately built from the nutrients you consume. This brings us to the third critical strategy, fighting the internal process that makes your skin brittle. The third way to plump up your hands is to address a biological process called glycation. This is something most people have never heard of, but it is a primary driver of visible aging. Glycation happens when there's excess sugar in your bloodstream. These sugar molecules float around and look for things to attach to. Unfortunately, they love to attach themselves to proteins specifically, collagen and elastin. When sugar binds to collagen, it forms what scientists call advanced glycation end products. The acronym is literally AGES. Think of this process like cooking. If you put a piece of bread in the toaster, the heat causes the sugars and proteins to react, turning the soft white bread into hard brown toast. This is the Maillard reaction. Glycation does something very similar to the collagen in your hands. It turns your collagen fibers, which should be flexible, white, and springy, into stiff, brittle, yellowed structures. When your collagen becomes brittle, it breaks. And when it breaks, your skin loses its elasticity and structural integrity, leading to that crepey, thin look where the skin just hangs off the veins. A study published in the British Journal of Dermatology highlighted exactly how glycation accumulates in the skin over time and is directly linked to the loss of elasticity and the visible signs of aging. So, how do we stop this internal toasting of your hands? It requires a two-pronged approach. First, you have to stabilize your blood sugar. You need to cut down on the refined sugars and processed carbohydrates that cause those massive glucose spikes. Every time your blood sugar spikes, you are effectively caramelizing your own collagen. Second, you need to provide the raw materials for repair. The most critical nutrient for this is vitamin C. You cannot build new collagen without vitamin C. It is the biological cofactor required for the enzymes that stabilize the collagen molecule structure. Without adequate vitamin C, the collagen you produce is weak and unstable. It's like trying to build a brick wall without mortar. You should also consider supplementation. There is very promising data regarding hydrolyzed collagen peptides. A study published in the Journal of Cosmetic Dermatology found that oral supplementation with collagen peptides significantly increased skin hydration and collagen density after just 8 weeks. The key here is consistency. Adding a scoop of high-quality hydrolyzed collagen peptides to your morning coffee or smoothie, combined with a diet rich in vitamin C from peppers, citrus, and leafy greens, provides your body with the toolkit it needs to repair the damage. I want to pause here for a moment. We have covered sun protection, retinoids, and diet. That is a lot of information to digest. If you are finding this deep dive helpful, if you appreciate understanding the why behind the advice, please take a second to hit that like button. It helps me know that this is the kind of content you want, and it helps our community grow. Now, let's move on to the texture of the skin, right? Sometimes the hands look old, not just because they are thin, but because the skin is dull, rough, and unable to reflect light. This leads us to our fourth strategy, chemical exfoliation. As we age, our natural cell turnover rate slows down dramatically. When you were a child, your skin replaced itself every couple of weeks. By the time you are over 50, that process can take 6 weeks or longer. This means that dead, dry skin cells accumulate on the surface of your hands. This layer of dead skin does two terrible things. First, it makes the skin look gray and rough, which accentuates the wrinkles and veins. Second, and more importantly, it acts like a shield. It prevents all those expensive lotions and retinoids we just talked about from penetrating deep enough to do their job. We need to remove this barrier. But, and this is crucial, we do not want to use harsh physical scrubs. You know, the ones with crushed apricot pits or plastic microbeads on thin senior skin. Those jagged particles can cause micro tears, leading to inflammation and further damage. We want to be gentle. Instead, we look to alpha hydroxy acids, or AHAs. These are ingredients like glycolic acid or lactic acid. They work by dissolving the glue that holds dead skin cells together. allowing them to slough off naturally. The science supports this beautifully. Research published in the Journal of the American Academy of Dermatology has shown that regular treatment with AHAs not only exfoliates the surface, but can actually increase the thickness of the viable epidermis. It essentially tricks the skin into thinking it is being damaged, which triggers a repair response that produces more collagen and hyaluronic acid. It is a dual action benefit. You get smoother skin immediately and thicker skin over time. Think of it like sanding down a piece of old weathered wood. If you just paint over the rough gray splinters, it still looks old. But if you gently sand it down to reveal the fresh, smooth grain underneath and then apply the polish, it looks brand new. The actionable advice here is to look for a hand cream or a body lotion that contains glycolic acid or lactic acid. Use it in the evening, perhaps on the nights you aren't using your retinol. You might feel a slight tingle, which is normal. That's the acid working to dissolve those bonds. By removing the dead layer, you instantly make the hands look brighter and smoother, and you clear the path for your moisturizers to work their magic. This leads us perfectly into our final strategy, which is all about locking it all in. We have protected, stimulated, fueled, and exfoliated. Now, we need to flood the tissue with hydration and seal it tight. We need to talk about the concept of occlusion. The skin on your hands is naturally prone to dryness because it lacks the abundance of sebaceous glands found on the face. As we get older, we also lose natural moisturizing factors like ceramides and hyaluronic acid. Hyaluronic acid is a miracle molecule. It can hold up to 1,000 times its weight in water. When we lose it, our skin loses volume, literally, it deflates. A study in the Journal of Clinical and Aesthetic Dermatology emphasized the role of the skin barrier function and how easily it is compromised in aging skin. The study highlighted that simple moisturizers often aren't enough because of something called transepidermal water loss, or TOW. This is a fancy way of saying that your skin is leaky. You put moisture on, and it evaporates right back out into the dry air. To stop this, you need a technique that dermatologists have used for decades to treat severe eczema and dry skin. It's called slugging or occlusion therapy. You need to create a physical seal over the skin that traps moisture inside, forcing it to absorb. Here is the nightly ritual I want you to try. It might seem a little high maintenance at first, but the results are undeniable. Before you go to bed, wash your hands and leave them slightly damp. Apply your active ingredients, your retinol or your exfoliant. Then apply a generous layer of a basic hydrating moisturizer. But don't stop there. The secret weapon is to apply a final layer of an occlusive ointment. This is something heavy and greasy, like Vaseline, Aquaphor, or a pure shea butter balm. You want your hands to feel slippery. Then, and this is the part that requires commitment, put on a pair of white cotton gloves. I know wearing gloves to bed sounds unappealing. You might feel like a mime or a museum archivist. But hear me out on the imagery. Imagine a greenhouse in the middle of a desert. If you water the plants, but the sun beats down and the wind blows, that water evaporates in minutes. But if you put a glass dome over that garden, the moisture cycles inside, creating a humid tropical environment where plants thrive. The gloves act as that glass dome. They raise the temperature of the skin slightly, which opens the pores and forces the moisture deep into the tissue. They also prevent the grease from getting all over your bed sheets. When you wake up in the morning and take those gloves off, you will see a visible difference. Your hands will look plumper, the veins will be less apparent because the skin is fully saturated with water, and the texture will be incredibly soft. It is an immediate aesthetic improvement that motivates you to keep going with the long-term structural repairs. So let's recap the journey we've just mapped out for your hands. It is a comprehensive system, not a single miracle cure. First, we are going to stop the truck driver effect by using sunscreen religiously. We are going to keep a tube in the car and make it as automatic as checking our mirrors. We are stopping the UVA rays from shredding our remaining collagen. Second, we are going to wake up our sleepy fibroblasts using retinoids. We're going to gently introduce vitamin A to our routine to physically thicken the dermis and rebuild the collagen matrix from the inside out. Third, we are going to stop caramelizing our own tissues. We are going to cut the sugar spikes that cause glycation and load up on vitamin C and collagen peptides to provide the mortar for our cellular bricks. Fourth, we are going to reveal fresh, glowing skin using chemical exfoliation with AHAs, stripping away the dull, gray layer of dead cells that makes hands look tired. And finally, we are going to create a moisture sanctuary at night using the power of occlusion. We are going to use cotton gloves to force hydration into the skin, plumping it up and hiding those veins. It sounds like a lot when you list it all out, but in practice, it boils down to a few minutes a day. It's about integrating these small acts of care into your existing routine. And more than that, it's about changing the mindset you have toward your own body. We often look at our hands and we judge them. We see them as evidence of our decline, but I want you to look at them differently. These hands have held children and grandchildren. They have worked hard, they have built lives, they have comforted loved ones, and they have weathered storms. They are the primary tools with which you interact with the world. They deserve to be cared for with tenderness and respect. You have the power to change the trajectory of your health and your appearance. Biology is not destiny, it is a starting point. Just because you are 60 or 70 doesn't mean you have to accept disintegration. By taking these steps, you are telling your body that you are still investing in it, that you are still vibrant, and that you are worth the effort. Now, I want to hear from you. I want this to be a conversation, not a lecture. Which of these 5 steps feels the most doable for you to start today? Is it the sunscreen in the center console? Or are you brave enough to try the cotton gloves tonight? Leave a comment below and let me know. I read them and it inspires me to see people taking action. And if you found this video helpful, if it gave you a sense of control over your aging process, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Share it with a friend who might be feeling down about getting older. Let's prove that we can age with strength, science, and dignity, because your health is worth fighting for, and we are in this fight together. Here is to strong, capable, and beautiful hands, no matter the year on your birth certificate. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.